The Trojan War. The Trojan War is one of the greatest stories ever told from the ancient Greek world. It begins not with armies, but with desire, pride, and insult. According to myth, Paris of Troy was asked to judge which goddess was the fairest. Hera, Athena, or Aphrodite. Each offered him a reward. Aphrodite promised him the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen of Sparta. Paris chose Aphrodite, and Helen's departure with him became the spark that brought Greece and Troy into war. The Greek kings gathered under Agamemnon and sailed to Troy, where the war lasted 10 years. The story brought together some of the most famous names in Greek legend: Achilles, Hector, Odysseus, Ajax, Menelaus, and Priam. But the Trojan War was not only about fighting. It was about honor, revenge, grief, and the cost of pride. Heroes won glory, but almost everyone paid for it. The war ended through deception rather than strength. The Greeks built a giant wooden horse, hid warriors inside it, and pretended to sail away. The Trojans brought the horse into the city as a trophy. That night, the hidden Greeks emerged, opened the gates, and Troy was destroyed. The Trojan War became legendary because it felt larger than a battle. It was a story where love began a war, pride prolonged it, and deception ended what armies could not. Achilles and Hector. Among all the stories connected to Troy, the conflict between Achilles and Hector stands above the rest. It is not simply a fight between two warriors. It is a collision between rage and duty. Achilles was the greatest fighter among the Greeks, but his pride made him dangerous even to his own side. After a bitter quarrel with Agamemnon, he refused to fight, leaving the Greek army weakened. Hector, the prince of Troy, stood on the other side as the city's protector. He was not fighting for personal glory alone. He was defending his family, his people, and the walls of his home. The tragedy begins when Patroclus, Achilles' closest companion, enters battle wearing Achilles' armor. Hector kills him, believing he has struck down the great Greek hero. When Achilles learns of Patroclus' death, grief turns into fury. He returns to battle with one purpose: to kill Hector. Their duel outside the walls of Troy became one of the most powerful moments in Greek epic. Hector knows he may die, but he faces Achilles anyway. Achilles wins, then dishonors Hector's body by dragging it behind his chariot. Only later, when King Priam secretly enters the Greek camp to beg for his son's body, does Achilles' rage soften. This story is legendary because neither man is simple. Achilles is almost unstoppable, but emotionally broken. Hector is doomed, but deeply human. Their battle shows that glory in Greek myth often comes wrapped in grief. Odysseus and the Cyclops. Odysseus was not the strongest Greek hero, but he may have been the cleverest. After the Trojan War, he tried to sail home to Ithaca. Instead, his journey became a 10-year struggle filled with monsters, temptations, gods, and disasters. One of his most famous encounters came on the island of the Cyclops. Odysseus and his men entered the cave of Polyphemus, a one-eyed giant and son of Poseidon. At first, they hoped for hospitality. Instead, the Cyclops trapped them inside and began eating the men one by one. Strength could not save them. The stone blocking the cave entrance was too heavy to move, and killing the giant immediately would leave them trapped forever. Odysseus survived by using intelligence. He told Polyphemus that his name was Nobody. Then he and his men got the giant drunk, blinded him with a sharpened stake, and escaped by hiding beneath the bellies of sheep as Polyphemus led his flock out of the cave. When the blinded giant cried for help, he shouted that Nobody was hurting him, confusing the other Cyclops. But Odysseus made one terrible mistake. As he sailed away, he revealed his real name. Polyphemus called on Poseidon to punish him, and Odysseus' journey home became even harder. This story became legendary because it celebrates intelligence while warning against arrogance. Odysseus escapes through cunning, then suffers because he cannot resist claiming glory. The Sirens. Not every danger in Greek myth attacked with claws, swords, or teeth. Some dangers sang. During his long voyage home, Odysseus had to pass the Sirens, mysterious beings whose voices were so beautiful that sailors could not resist them. Men who heard the song would steer toward it, only to be destroyed. The Sirens did not need to chase ships. They lured people into choosing their own ruin. Odysseus wanted to hear the song without dying. His solution was clever and dangerous. He ordered his men to fill their ears with wax so they could not hear anything. Then he had them tie him tightly to the mast of the ship. No matter how much he begged, screamed, or ordered them to release him, they were to keep rowing until the danger had passed. When the song reached him, Odysseus lost control of himself. He struggled, demanded freedom, and wanted to follow the voices. But his men could not hear him clearly and obeyed his earlier command. The ship passed safely. The Sirens are legendary because they represent a different kind of threat. Temptation. They show that danger does not always appear as something ugly. Sometimes it appears as beauty, knowledge, or desire. Odysseus survives not because he is immune, but because he admits he is vulnerable and prepares for his own weakness. Theseus and the Minotaur. The story of Theseus and the Minotaur begins with fear hidden inside a maze. On the island of Crete, King Minos kept a terrifying creature called the Minotaur, a monster with the body of a man and the head of a bull. It lived inside the labyrinth, a complex maze built by the master craftsman Daedalus. According to the myth, Athens was forced to send young men and women to Crete as tribute, where they were placed inside the labyrinth and killed by the monster. Theseus, Prince of Athens, volunteered to go as one of the victims, but he did not intend to die. When he arrived in Crete, Minos' daughter Ariadne fell in love with him and gave him a ball of thread. Theseus tied the thread at the entrance of the labyrinth, entered the maze, found the Minotaur, and killed it. Then he followed the thread back out, escaping a place designed to trap anyone who entered. The story became legendary because it is built around more than a monster fight. The Minotaur represents hidden shame, violence, and tribute. The labyrinth represents confusion and fear. Ariadne's thread represents guidance through chaos. Theseus survives because courage alone is not enough. He needs help, planning, and a way back. In Greek myth, victory is often not just about defeating the monster. It is about escaping the world that created it. Perseus and Medusa. Medusa is one of the most famous figures in Greek mythology, but her story is darker than a simple monster tale. She was one of the Gorgons, and her face had the power to turn anyone who looked directly at her into stone. For most heroes, that would make her impossible to fight. A sword was useless if the warrior became a statue before he could strike. Perseus was sent to kill her, but he survived because the gods gave him tools. He received winged sandals, a special bag for the head, a cap of invisibility in some versions, and most importantly, a polished shield from Athena. Instead of looking directly at Medusa, Perseus watched her reflection in the shield. Using the reflection as his guide, he approached while she slept and cut off her head. Even after death, Medusa's head kept its power. Perseus used it as a weapon in later parts of his journey, turning enemies into stone. From Medusa's blood, the winged horse Pegasus was born. This story is legendary because it combines horror, strategy, and transformation. Medusa is terrifying not because she attacks first, but because sight itself becomes dangerous. Perseus wins by refusing to face the threat in the normal way. He does not overcome Medusa by strength. He survives by changing how he sees her. Prometheus steals fire. Prometheus was not a warrior like Achilles or a traveler like Odysseus. His legend comes from rebellion. In Greek mythology, Prometheus was a titan who took pity on humans. The gods possessed fire, but humanity lived without its full power. Fire meant warmth, cooking, protection, metalworking, and civilization itself. By giving fire to humans, Prometheus gave them more than a tool. He gave them the possibility of progress. Zeus saw this as defiance. Prometheus had helped humanity cross a boundary the gods wanted to control. As punishment, Zeus had him chained to a rock. Each day, an eagle came to eat his liver. Each night, the liver grew back, allowing the torment to repeat again and again. Prometheus' story is legendary because it asks a powerful question. What is the price of helping humanity? To the Greeks, fire was not only physical. It represented knowledge, technology, and independence. Prometheus became the figure who suffered so humans could rise. There is something deeply modern in this ancient myth. Every invention gives humans power, but power can anger those who control the old order. Prometheus is remembered not because he conquered a city or killed a monster, but because he chose punishment over obedience. His gift made civilization possible, and his suffering made the gift unforgettable. Icarus and Daedalus. The myth of Icarus begins with escape, but it is remembered as a warning. Daedalus, the brilliant craftsman who built the labyrinth, became trapped in Crete with his son Icarus. To escape, he created wings from feathers and wax. Before they flew away, Daedalus warned Icarus not to fly too low, where sea moisture could weigh down the wings, and not too high, where the sun could melt the wax. At first, the plan worked. Father and son rose into the air, leaving imprisonment behind. But Icarus became overwhelmed by the joy of flight. He climbed higher and higher, ignoring his father's warning. As he flew too close to the sun, the wax softened, the feathers came apart, and Icarus fell into the sea. The story is legendary because it captures a feeling every age understands. The thrill of going beyond limits and the danger of forgetting why limits exist. Icarus does not fall because he is evil. He falls because wonder turns into recklessness. Daedalus survives, but his survival is painful. He escapes captivity and loses his son. That is why the myth is more than a warning against pride. It is also a story about invention, youth, grief, and the terrible moment when human brilliance cannot save what it loves. Oedipus and the Curse of Fate. Few Greek stories are as tragic as the story of Oedipus. Before Oedipus was born, a prophecy warned that he would kill his father and marry his mother. His parents, King Laius and Queen Jocasta of Thebes, tried to escape that fate by abandoning him as an infant. But Oedipus survived and was raised elsewhere, unaware of his true identity. Years later, he heard a similar prophecy and fled from the people he believed were his parents, trying to protect them. On the road, he quarreled with a stranger and killed him. That stranger was his real father, Laius. Later, Oedipus solved the riddle of the Sphinx and saved Thebes. As a reward, he became king and married the widowed queen, Jocasta, his real mother. The horror of the story comes from discovery. Oedipus is not a villain planning evil. He spends much of his life trying to avoid the prophecy. Yet every choice he makes brings him closer to fulfilling it. When the truth finally emerges, Jocasta dies by suicide, and Oedipus blinds himself. This story became legendary because it shows fate as something terrifyingly intelligent. The more Oedipus runs, the closer he gets. His tragedy is not that he chooses evil. It is that knowledge arrives only after the damage is complete. Leonidas and the 300 Spartans. Unlike many Greek legends, the story of Leonidas and the 300 Spartans belongs to history as well as mythic memory. In 480 BC, the Persian king Xerxes invaded Greece with a massive army. A small Greek force, led by King Leonidas of Sparta, blocked the Persians at the narrow pass of Thermopylae. The location was chosen carefully. In open ground, the Persian numbers would be overwhelming. In a narrow pass, Greek discipline and heavy infantry could reduce that advantage. For days, the Greeks held the pass. The Spartans became the symbol of resistance, though they were not the only Greeks present. Other allied soldiers also fought at Thermopylae. The turning point came when a local man named Ephialtes showed the Persians a mountain path around the Greek position. Leonidas realized the defense was doomed. Many Greeks were dismissed, but the Spartans and several others stayed behind. The final stand ended in death, but not failure in the symbolic sense. Thermopylae gave Greece time, created a powerful example of resistance, and became one of the most famous last stands in history. This story is legendary because it turns defeat into memory. Leonidas did not survive the battle. The 300 did not stop the Persian invasion alone, but their stand became a message. Courage can outlive the people who show it. Thank you for watching. To support the creation of more videos like this, please like this video, subscribe, and leave a comment suggesting a topic for our next video. Thanks again, and goodbye.